trust me, you won't have any problems about the kids that first day of school. Because when they see men there, especially if one of those men is their dad, you know, or their uncle or mentor, or somebody they look up to, you're not going to have any problems on the first day of school.
Good evening and welcome to Captions. So glad you joined us again. Captions is your community voice where we talk about all kinds of important information, news that you can use, and we have a variety of guests with different views. And tonight I have three special guests, as you could see. I have sitting immediately to my left, General Parker. To his left, I have Amy Eckhart. And to her left, I have Penny Watkins. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Captions.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
General, it's been a while since I've had you on the show, but I'm so glad that you've come by again, and I'm certain that what you want to talk about is very important to our viewers in terms of things that they should hear and get involved in, because every time you're here, as far as I'm concerned, you have a message. Why are we here tonight? I'm understanding that we're here to talk about Illinois Fathers. And what is Illinois Fathers?
Yes, thanks, Andre. Again, it's an honor and a privilege to be here and to be invited back, and I really appreciate that. Illinois Fathers is a non-custodial parental rights organization, and mostly what we're here today to talk about is more or less give you an update since our last show that we did here last year about the things that we've done and the things that are coming up in the near future.
Okay, so it's an organization. Is it a state organization for the whole state of Illinois, or is it a national organization of which Illinois is part of it, or what is it?
It is a statewide organization, but we're part of a national affiliate. Our national affiliate is ACFC, American Coalition of Fathers and Children.
Okay. And you told me before we started taping that Illinois Fathers, in a sense, is a misnomer because it can include women, such as mothers or grandparents or whatever.
Correct.
What basically does Illinois Fathers try to address in terms of its mission?
Well, our motto is children need both parents.
Both parents.
So that's why that is definitely why we try to make sure we fight and advocate for the rights of fathers and mothers.
Okay.
It just so happens that right now there's a disparity and bias in family court against fathers that they make up the majority of our members. But we have two members right here. Amy herself is a member, and she's the secretary of the board.
Okay.
Penny Watkins is a member and soon to be a board member also.
Okay.
So,
well, I'm glad that you brought them with you so that we could get a more comprehensive understanding and a broader appreciation in terms of what your organization is about. Since we last talked, have there been any specific activities that you feel good about in terms of things that you have done here recently in the last year or so in terms of special events? Or do you have anything planned coming up that would be of interest for people to know about it?
We have both, Andre. If I can work backwards, we just participated in an event on Father's Day, which Amy was a part of, that took place in Chicago, called Real Men Cook. And Amy can tell you more about that than I could.
Real Men Cook, okay. Yes. I know real men eat. Well, I'm glad to know that they also cook. How did you get involved, or how long have you had an interest in the organization? And what have you done, either individually or specifically, since your involvement with the Real Men Cook, or anything else you want to talk about?
Absolutely. I have known about Illinois Fathers for a few years, and it sparked my attention because I feel for men. I have two sons. I have brothers. They have problems.
Okay.
And then I myself am a non-custodial parent, and I just felt like this is the group that understood me the best. And I was welcomed with open arms when I contacted the organization through the website. and I got, to where I wanted to get more involved, and lo and behold, he saw that I had some talent, the gentleman on the board did, and so then they said, would you like to be a secretary? And I said, I would be honored, because this is the organization I feel that has a calling and can do so much good. When I found out about the Stephen Watkins bill and what they're doing with that, promoting that, contacting state reps, just recently I was at the where we have a support group meeting in the Champaign-Urbana area, and State Rep Naomi Jacobson was there, and that was that went very well. She was very concerned and she wanted to help us, and I'm not really sure where all that's gone right now, but the best part I had was when we were at Real Men Cook, to really get in touch with all those people and tell them the good message of Illinois Fathers, that we are here to help, and we need to know some stories.
Right.
But we want to make a difference.
Okay. Amy, how long and why do you have an interest
This is Amy, that's Penny.
I'm sorry.
I got involved with Illinois Fathers Group in November of 2008 when my son was murdered, and
wow. Sorry.
when we started into court, several of the Illinois Fathers Group were there and supported us just to be there with us. I mean, they didn't offer any, to do this or do that, but they were there.
Yes.
And anything we needed, they were there to back you and help you with questions or things that you needed. And that's when we got involved with the Illinois Fathers Group. And actually, I feel like the Illinois Fathers Group is part of my family now.
When did this unfortunate incident occur as far as you're losing your son?
November 25th, 2008.
So that's about, what, 3 years?
Almost 3 years ago.
About 3 years ago.
And I lost my son. He went through the channels, the legal system, and got visitation rights. And he went to pick his daughter up on one of the court-ordered visitation times. He wasn't at the house 5 minutes when he was murdered.
Well, that is really unfortunate. I'm glad that there was an organization that came to your assistance and gave you the kind of support that you would need in terms of losing a loved one, and providing an opportunity in terms of maybe bringing about some needed change, whether it's in our laws, but more important in our attitudes, from the court system to the general public. Is that what this shirt is making reference to, where you say justice for Stephen?
Yes. See, when we got involved in this story, one of our members, he's an area coordinator now out of Springfield, his name's Jim Wettigan.
Okay.
He brought this story to our attention, and this is exactly what we advocate for, because for some reason the courts just don't seem to understand that it's important for a child to have that interaction with both parents.
Right.
But when it comes to enforcing visitation orders, they feel like that's just something that we put down on paper. We really don't have to deal with it. Child support, well, they make money off that. The state of Illinois makes money off collecting child support, because the federal government will match whatever they collect.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware of that. I didn't know that the courts got money off our child support payments. What, they come through the court system?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the thing is, for too long now, Andre, our children have been politicized and monetized to where the dysfunction that you see out in society now is the fruits of what they started years ago, all because of the almighty dollar. And when we heard about this situation, so how can a man exercise his court-ordered visitation, and have to pay the ultimate price? He gave his life going to see his daughter. And then the courts, in the beginning, they weren't even trying to prosecute this case. So we got together and we rallied and we talked to different DJs around there. We put pressure on the prosecutor. We made phone calls. We got people to call in, and then they finally decided to get involved in this case. Penny can tell you what happened with the case after that, and who was charged, and how it came about, and where they at now. I'll let her bring you up to speed on that.
Okay. Would you like to talk about that now?
Actually, almost a year after the murder.
Okay.
Shirley Skinner, the grandmother, which would have been a great-grandmother of his child, was arrested and prosecuted for Stephen's murder.
Okay.
In the trial, we learned that the night that the murder happened, she confessed to 3 different people. but it took them almost a year to make an arrest. I mean, we called and we finally went to the media with it and said, you know, something, you just can't do this, you know. And it's not going to go away because we're not going to go away. You know, my son gave his life for this little girl. That's what I feel like he did.
Well, I tell you, this is really going to the extreme in terms of whatever problem exists. And fortunately, most of these kinds of custody cases don't result in a murder in terms of a life, but it can certainly be a killing in terms of a relationship between the non-custodial parent and that child. And maybe those are some of the things that we can really talk about in terms of some of the issues that still exist, whether in terms of whether it's still the attitude. I know I'm 70 and I grew up at a time where it was just automatic. If there was a divorce, the wife or the mother always had the custody of the child. The father, his only primary responsibility was maybe visit every other Wednesday and on the weekend and provide some money and so forth. And in many cases, probably the best person to have custody of the child may have been the father at the time. And it took a long time before that began to change. And I don't know whether you have any information on that fact or whether that's still an issue or problem.
But I want to clear something up though. And it might have been in your time growing up, but going back through time though, whenever there was a divorce or mom and dad split up, the kids by right remained with the dad up until like the middle of the 18th century. I mean, going back to judo, because women and children, women. Well, I'm just saying, it didn't even start to try to change.
Well, women didn't have many rights at all back.
Right, and the children didn't either because they were considered property of the man.
Right.
And that's what's so crazy about this. And when I gave a presentation up at Morton College last week, you know, I had to make that clear. You know, that pendulum was so far to the right, you know, this way, you know, and I mean, with common law from all the way from England, which we take a lot of our laws from, all the way back to judo Christian times, you know, women were and children were considered property of the man. So if the woman left or there was a divorce, the children stayed, in which that was wrong. But now they've gone so far the other way, you know, to where it doesn't matter. They just consider the mom to be the primary caregiver, and dad just pay your money and shut up. You're the 18 now, and it's swung 180 degrees, and that's wrong. See, but we got to come to a place where we realize that children need both parents. Okay, it took both parents to make this child. It takes both parents to raise these kids. You know, and God knew that from the beginning. See, that's why He put kids together with a mom and a dad. Okay, and you need both sides, emotionally, psychologically, financially. You need that from mom and dad to be able to grow up to be the well-rounded person that you need to be functioning in society like you should. And we got research that shows that if a child doesn't have at least 35% of parenting time with that non-custodial parent, without either parent, they tend to have social pathologies. You know, they are less likely to achieve in school, more likely to use drugs, 3 times more likely to go to jail, end up in prison, to join gangs, to use drugs, become teen parents themselves. See, so that's why we advocate for the maximum involvement from both parents. So, and that's why Penny's case was so dear to us. You know, we said we definitely got to do something about this because I think around November of last year, even though they were awarded visitation through the courts with their granddaughter, this mom decided she was going to jettison to Florida and leave the state and wouldn't have to worry about Illinois orders. And so we wrote up some legislation. We wrote up about 3 of them. The first one was the Stephen Watkins bill. We called Penny and asked her, would it be all right if we can use Stephen's name on this bill, because this bill is all about him. And it's a parental visitation interference bill. And it passed the House. I mean, it passed the we were there. You testified at the committee hearing. It passed unanimously through the House, and then it passed through the House committee meeting, the Judicial Committee meeting, the hearing, and then it went to the full House and it passed there. Then it got to the Senate, and it's kind of like where we're stalled at right now.
Okay.
You know, we showed up that day and we had, I think, 90% of the audience were people that showed up. We decided to have our Fatherless Day rally then. That was May 10th. We had bikers come from all over the state, had a police escort, rode down on the Capitol. You know, we had our Fatherless Day rally out there. Representative Howard, the sponsor of the bill, she showed up. Representative Al Riley, Will Davis. We got so many supporters. Senator Maddie Hunter, she's the initial sponsor of the bill. Right now, Senator John Sullivan, he's sponsoring the bill. And we hope to get it passed through in the veto session. So we want to make sure that everybody that's within the sound of my voice, make sure you call Senator Kaler, call Senator LaHood, or anybody that you know, and let them know that this bill is important and it needs to be passed.
And what is the essence of the bill? What does the bill address, or what does it do or doesn't do? Or
well, what we decided to do was, from the research that we have, and plus we know when there's a divorce and mom and dad breaks up, okay, somebody's going to be the primary caregiver.
Yes.
You know, then somebody's going to be what they term as a non-custodial parent.
Right.
Well, the primary caregiver, not only do they get the child or the children, they also get to receive child support.
Right.
See, so that's the plus that they get. Well, the non-custodial parent, well, they're paying the child support. The only thing they get out of this deal is to have that visitation time with their children.
Okay.
See, so both of them are just as important as the other. And there's other states around who recognize that fact. So we went to other states and seen what laws that they had enacted. And Missouri states specifically, it says that parental visitation interference shall be enforced in the same manner as child support enforcement. See, but
now define, what is parental interference?
That's when, if just like her ex-daughter-in-law has done right now, taking a child and has violated the court order, and they interfered with the parenting time or the custody visitation time of the other parent, you know, with the express intent to deprive them of their custody or visitation rights.
And are you telling me that we don't already have that kind of a law, that a parent cannot interfere with the other parent's right to visit?
You know, Andre, we have two laws. One of them is a civil law, and the other one is a criminal law. But the thing is, you have to have violated the criminal law at least 3 different times before, I mean the civil law, before they make it a criminal violation. But the thing is, you can't even get it in the civil court because prosecutors don't prosecute this. They don't enforce the law. You show up there with the police and, well, this is my order. You know, I'm supposed to have my child at this time. Police will not do anything. They say that's a civil matter. We don't get involved.
And then the civil court, in fact, I've worked in the civil court until I was just released, but I thought that if a parent brought to the court's attention or whoever's attention that the parent has left town and taken my daughter without permission and so forth, that actions could be taken against that.
Well, you know, that's the point we're making. They don't necessarily enforce these laws. See, they're in place right now.
So this is a law to enforce a law that should be. This is a law to help enforce,
and not only that, the law that's in place now, what we're proposing amends that law and gives it more teeth, okay? And what we did was we took some of the same sanctions that they have in child support enforcement, and we added those same sanctions on the other side for visitation interference. Well, there's a space in there where your driver's license can be suspended. You can be fined up to $500 for the first time. You could be subjected to be put up a $5,000 bond, you know, to make sure you don't do this again. You could possibly go to jail if they see that you keep doing this, and it's a gross misconduct on your part. Is there some other things I'm leaving out? Oh, your professional license can be suspended.
Now this is of the parent who's making it difficult for the other parent to get their visitation. For instance, if I'm supposed to be coming over to see my daughter on Wednesday and the mother decides, well, hey, let's go to the show, and take the daughter, and when I get there, there's nobody there, or on the weekends, if I'm supposed to have her, she decides that, well, I think I'm going to drive to Springfield to a picnic. These are the kinds of things we're talking about, where whoever the parent is that has the child refuses to make the child available for visitation and those kinds of things.
Correct.
And you want to make it more difficult for that parent who are doing those things in terms of violations and having some of the things you're talking about done.
It's not so much we want to make it more difficult for them. We want them to comply with the law.
Well, that's what I mean. Difficult in terms of their being able to do things, that there's some penalties that go with their refusing to follow the court order by making it,
it gives the court more options to force the custodial parent to abide by the court order.
Okay. Well,
and you know, we're by no means saying if they miss one visit, take their driver's license, pull their state license. Those are options that it's up to the judge's discretion to use.
Okay.
And even if the judge did do it on the first offense, the thing is, we're not so much worried about a perpetrator who's breaking the law. Okay. What we're trying to do is change attitudes, okay, and we're trying to change behavior to let them know that, you know, and it's not even about the perpetrator, it's not even about the parent who's missing the visitation. It's about what's best for that child. Because if you're not giving that child the parenting time that that child needs, that child is going to act out. I'm telling you, we got the research that backs it up. They start around the age 12 or 13, and then from then on, okay, I mean, you and I see it in the black community. When them kids don't have those dads around, they start acting up. They get to middle school, junior high school, they start acting up. There's nothing you can tell them, and they don't have anything to do with hormones, okay? You got to do it, I don't have a dad around, you know, and I miss my dad. Why isn't my dad here? Well, my mom said this, my mom said that, or vice versa. And see, they don't understand how they're poisoning that child. See, and you said something, you alluded to it earlier, but the term for that is called parental alienation. And there's a study going on now, and it's become an accepted science called parental alienation syndrome, PAS. And it happens to mothers, it happens to dads, and that's when you have parents who put their hate and their disgust for the other parent or the spouse or whoever above the love that they have for their child. See,
normally the kids are the victims, and they're the real losers when it comes to the divorce and the breakup, as well as the custody issue, where either the child wants to stay with the dad, but the mom wants them with her, and sometimes the courts have to make that kind of decision, who's going to win, and whether a person can move to another city or another state because they're going to be remarrying, and they would want the child to go there with them, and it's a real complex issue.
I think a real good example of one of the big things that the Illinois Fathers Group represents is, just to give you a little bit of a story, when we had been through the Illinois court, the Illinois Appellate Court, and the Supreme Court, and the decisions all stood, that we got visitation with my youngest granddaughter, Sydney. She had been over to the house for a visit, and the two girls were playing in the living room one day. And I heard my oldest granddaughter say, yes, our daddy does love us. And the youngest one says, my daddy doesn't love me. My mom says he don't love me because he doesn't ever bring me anything, and he never comes and sees me. My oldest granddaughter started crying, and she said, Daddy can't come and see you, he lives in heaven.
And
she didn't understand why her dad didn't love her, that her dad, you know, had been murdered and was gone.
And I guess, in my opinion, we can't legislate attitudes and the wrongful things that many divorced couples say about the other to the children or in front of the children and that type of a thing. And to me, that's extremely injurious in terms of the child's perception of who the real mother is, because sometimes the father will just say, your mother's nothing but a slut and she's this and that, or the mother will say, your dad is nothing but a deadbeat. And we begin to plant those kinds of thoughts in kids, and it certainly doesn't turn out to be anything positive in terms of their perception of their mom or their dad or their relationship. And, you know, I sure hope that we can change attitudes, but I'll be honest.
Well, we can't.
I agree with
yeah.
that, but you know, that child, we
Right.
don't give children enough credit.
Oh, no, we give
No
I
matter
do.
what mom or dad
Yeah.
says about
Kids.
the other, if that child spends time with the other parent,
Right.
that child will overcome and draw their own conclusions
Yeah.
I
about
hope
their parents
that's the
about.
case. I hope that's
I
the
honestly
case.
believe
They
that.
will.
I have seen that.
And we may not be able to legislate attitudes, but we can definitely legislate behaviors.
Well,
and if we have
I guess
legislation,
that's where it
in-
starts,
if
right?
if we have legislation in place to let them know that there's consequences to this type of behavior, then we can change those behaviors. But we got legislation in place that's in place now that has totally no teeth, and they never even enforce. Then all you do is embolden people to commit this type of behavior.
I
See?
think at this time, from my understanding, that once you get them to civil court for the non-visitation and they get before a judge, I think the fine is less than a seatbelt ticket.
See, yeah.
So that we
I
need-
wouldn't be surprised
we need
because
something with more
our
teeth in it.
traffic laws and tickets keep going up and up and up. And but I get your point.
And-
That's far more important than a seatbelt ticket,
There you
and
go.
the penalty certainly ought to reflect the importance
There
of
you
it,
go.
Yes.
and hopefully modifying that behavior of that parent that is continuously doing the wrong thing, and in many cases violating the court order, which is even the most important things. And it's, you know, I guess, and maybe I'm making more of it than what it is, but I'm equating it to the same thing as sexism and racism. People
It
are
is a
going to
genderism.
continue to, those people that do those kinds of things and their attitudes. I guess I've suffered enough through the so-called racism, and I'm certain that you ladies have faced sexism, and we do have laws against those things. And I'm certainly applauding and supporting what you're doing. But I think that the real key to bring about meaningful change is somehow, whether it's through a counseling program or whatever, that people need to clean up their act, clean up their attitudes. Even if the male and the female couldn't work it out, they should not use their kids as pawns or punish their mate by denying them the opportunity to bond with the child and to be a meaningful part of that child's life.
Or grandparents.
Or the
aunts and
grandparents.
uncles, stuff
Right,
like that, the
right.
other side.
Yes.
But and I just want to bring up, you know, next month we got a couple of projects coming up.
Oh, do you?
We got on the 21st of August, which
Of
is a
August,
Sunday. That's
okay.
the day before school starts back here in Peoria for District 150. We have the Million Father March. Where we
Million Father March.
Right, where we want dads to show up on the first day of school, you know, and participate in their kids' education. But I'll get back to that real quick. But on the 20th, that Saturday, we'll be having the 3rd annual Stephen Watkins Memorial Ride. And that's what this Justice for Stephen is all about. And this is the 3rd one. Last year, Penny and although they donated the proceeds to Illinois Fathers, they were thanking us for all the help and support that we gave them to get this thing started. And we really appreciate that.